Awesome. We're 5 after. It's great to see everybody. Thanks for piling on in today for Quai Friday. Obviously, I'm a little different. Matt usually hosts these, but unfortunately is caught up with something today. So I'm more than happy to jump on in and run the space and make sure we have a nice, smooth Quai Friday. I've got a really big narrative going on right now that everyone's really hyped about and wants to talk. And as you can see, it's gaining major traction throughout CT. I don't know if you have missed it, but if you have, it's called privacy, and it's kind of a big deal. And what we're going to be doing today is talking about this broadly. We're going to be talking about the different types of privacy coins out there, its history, what's good, what's bad, the pros and cons, and why Qi might be a king when you see the utility and what you can actually do with it. And so I want to thank our speakers for joining us today. Let's do just a quick round of intros just to say hi to the community. Most of you know who we are, but we also have Kiri on stage today. But I'm going to turn the microphone over to Jonathan first just for a quick little intro, and we'll go ahead and jump right in.
Hey, thanks, Christopher. Hey, guys. My name is Jonathan. I'm a co-founder of Quai, core protocol engineer, more of a technical-minded individual. I'm a developer, studied at the University of Texas in Austin and was part of the original research group behind Quai. If you didn't know, Quai is actually a research oriented project. Originally, we were a research project at the University of Texas. We wrote about 3 papers regarding our research in scaling blockchains and making decentralized finance better and more private, and creating a decentralized stablecoin, which is called Qi. And so, excited to talk to you guys about privacy in stablecoins and privacy in general. When it comes to scalability, privacy is also really, really important when we're trying to build decentralized money. So thank you.
Absolutely right. Actually, I think you hit an important point there. A lot of people don't know this, but Quai was actually researched and incubated out of the University of Texas at Austin by, again, the crack team, like you said yourself, and several others that obviously Galen and Dr. K running the mechanisms that make everything work. So it's actually got a very studious and collegiate background. It's one of the things that attracted me most to this project. And if you didn't know, now you do know. A lot of people actually don't know. So I think it's something we could be shouting from the rooftops a little bit more often. But that's not the point. Veronica, let's go over to you really quick. Just a quick short intro, then I'll hand it over to Kiri and we'll get started.
Yeah, I'm just here on the support side more so because I know a lot of the Quai content that we produced around privacy. So just here to chime in. I'm the content director at Quai. Happy to be here. Let me know if anybody wants to get up on stage and we'll try to get you up.
You all know Veronica, of course, but thanks for the intro. Obviously, rocking and rolling behind the scenes, making things operate, all the fun marketing content, all the fun things you engage with. It really comes from her, the Giga brain herself. So appreciate that, Veronica. Kiri, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? You're up here for a very special reason today. Go ahead and take it away.
Hey guys, hope you guys are doing fine this Quai Friday. Yeah, just want to talk about myself a little bit. I'm graduated like a computer engineer, and I did a diploma work. It was related to AI. So yeah, I'm kind of deep in the AI space from early days. Oh, sorry guys. Yeah. And my diploma was related to, kind of predict the next movement of Forex and exchange rates. In those days, I just realized that's how AI is powerful, and how important to, kind of take care of the data. Because to AI to work properly, you need to put a lot of data there, and from those days I just learning how to do so, how to take care of my privacy, etc. How to kind of try help people to take care about their privacy, their data. And recently started to work at Token. It's kind of end-to-end encrypted chat application where people can chat privately, and it's deployed on Quai network. It's right now operating on Orchard testnet. So hopefully we will run it on mainnet later on, but yeah, we are on testnet and really hope it will help people kind of take care of the privacy and take care of their data.
That's awesome. It's so glad to have you here today, Kiri. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate that. We're going to talk about the reason why token works in a little bit here. But actually, why don't we, at a high level, just start with our privacy coin. It's called Chi. Of course, Jonathan, I'd like to before we jump in, I'll talk a little bit about the history. Obviously, as you guys know, Bitcoin itself started off as an anonymous, a very private source of financial digital cash. And then over the years, as hashes themselves became demystified, that privacy slowly eroded away, thanks to just innovations, thanks to tools. And in fact, in the current paradigm as it sits today with the tools that are currently available, is actually pretty much no longer anonymous. When you look at, and so if a regular person were to look at just a regular hash address, they wouldn't really understand this. But again, there are definitely ways, and there are tools that you can utilize. Anyone can, a business, a regular person, doesn't matter who you are, can go actually acquire these. And just for a monthly fee or a one-time fee can actually start de-anonymizing the blockchain yourself. So whether it's getting stood up with an exchange and you have to provide KYC, which is the on and off ramp for most people out there, or whether you're trying to even just send a normal transaction on Bitcoin, this is now we're in a state where everyone can see and pretty much understand where that's coming from. And so I think this is why privacy has re-entered the narrative. Thank the Lord himself, herself, itself, because one of the reasons I got into the space was the privacy element. And, for a while there, I did think that privacy was intact. You have blockchains like Ethereum that pushed privacy pretty hard with Tornado Cash, with L2s like Aztec, but there are definitely flaws. There are definitely issues that we won't necessarily cover on this, but that's a reason why privacy is coming back into focus, is everyone's really realized at this point, at this stage, that those privacy tools are eroded. They're completely captured and very visible. So even if you're using something like a Tornado Cache, there are methods in which you can determine who people are. And again, that's thanks to the tools that have been created in the last 15 years. And so right now, the big narrative has been focused mostly on Monero as well as Zcash. But before we dive into those, I'd love, Jonathan, if you take the wheel and walk us through Chi and walk us through the basics and give us an understanding as to why it's private and why this is so important.
Yeah, sure. So Chi is a cash-like privacy token based on a UTXO ledger, kind of like Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is also based on a UTXO ledger, but there are rules in the Chi ledger that make it more private than Bitcoin. So some of those rules are related to address reuse. Some of them are related to denominations. So every Chi UTXO or out point is a certain denomination. That means that, your wallet kind of looks like a series of bills. Obviously to you as a user, you probably don't really think about that. It's not something you'll have to think about when you use it. But the wallet is basically composed of a series of bills, and those bills are effectively untraceable. So that gives us better privacy, certainly, than Bitcoin. But then if you want to get into, the more complex privacy protocols, right? Like, Bulletproof's, Monero, or ZK Snarks, with Zcash, we offer something that's similar to, Bitcoin's Whirlpool or, CoinJoin. So that is, I think Samurai Wallet originally, was the implementation of that. So if you've heard of Samurai Wallet, it's basically a way for you to mix your Bitcoins, in a way with other people cooperatively in a way that's untraceable. And so you can do the same thing with Chi. So we offer, privacy features that make Chi untraceable with, like I said, fixed denominations. So your wallet looks like a bunch of untraceable bills. No address reuse, meaning every address you generate is new. When you want to send somebody money, you have to scan what's called a payment code, which kind of derives a list of addresses between you and the recipient that only exist between you and the recipient. So there's no way to, kind of understand other addresses that individual's wallet might have. And then, when you really want to get down to the, complex privacy technicals, coin join is probably the best way to do that. And that's kind of cooperatively signing many of these denominations or many of these bills with other people at the same time. You can also cooperatively sign with the person you're sending to. So these features would make, the ledger, the Qi ledger, almost entirely private. I mean, you'd be able to see like amounts, right? But those amounts are fixed. So you can't determine any certain, you really can't understand what is happening using the amounts like you can in Zcash, for example. So like as an example, if I send 0.01234 into the Zcash shielded pool, and then later I withdraw 0.01234 to another address, somebody who has access to the entire chain could trace that transaction because the numbers you've used are very specific, very exact, and very unlikely to be done by like another person. So that's where fixed denominations really help, in that you can't really kind of trace a denomination because of its entropic value, or it's like randomness, I guess, because there's no random numbers. Every number is like 1, 5, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000 kind of chits, which is the smallest unit of Qi is one chit, and so it makes everything a lot harder to trace. But once, and so that's already fairly good. But once you get into more complex stuff like coin join, it makes clustering and analysis of the chain to try to trace one transaction to another, one sender to another, practically impossible.
That's amazing. And as you mentioned, chits are a very, very important part of this for token and how token operates and works. And we'll actually dive into that in just a minute. But wanted to kind of open up and really talk about comparing these to Monero, comparing these to Zcash, and why this is so different and such a more sophisticated approach and more of a nuance required in order to make this work. But why don't we start with everyone's favorite, not in the limelight right now, but for years and years and years and years and years has easily and single-handedly dominated the privacy space. So let's talk a little bit about Monero and then compare that to Zcash.
Yeah, was that a question for me, Christopher?
Oh, sorry. Yes, Jonathan, if you don't mind. Breaking down the basics of Monero. We have Dr. K up on stage as well. Have a little back and forth between you guys on Monero. We'll go to Zcash, and then we'll talk about Qi again, and then go into token.
Sure. So, there's a trade-off here. So Monero has bulletproofs, it has ring signatures, it has a lot of features that make, a currency pretty private, but it's not scalable, right? So the trade-off that you kind of give when you use Monero is that it's expensive, it's slow, right? You're talking, I don't know, but 5-minute block times or something like that.
2 minute.
Okay, 2 minute. Either way, it's too slow to be used in a normal, cash-like way. If you go to the store, you go to the checkout, like imagine if every person at the checkout had to wait 2 minutes after they've already bagged their groceries. I just think, the lines would get ridiculous. So, in reality, it's not scalable. And part of the reason is the cryptography they use. The cryptography they use is very complicated. It's slow. And I'm talking about ring signatures and bulletproofs as a combination. And so, while it does offer, cryptographically secure privacy, and it does kind of mask all of the details of a transaction, like the amounts you're sending and stuff, I just think it's a little bit overboard, and I don't think it's a scalable system. Now, it might be good for buying illegal drugs on the internet, maybe, but I just don't think it's good for a scalable system, whereas Qi is a private and scalable system. Because we use, enough privacy or enough cryptography tools to make privacy viable for billions of people, but at the same time, it scales very well to, thousands of transactions per second. And so while I appreciate that the work the Monero team has done, I just don't think it's a scalable system that can be used by billions of people at one time, because the cryptography is a little bit too complex. And, perhaps it could be optimized. I'm not going to say that that's, not possible, but can it be scaled to 100,000 TPS? I don't think so.
I fully agree. Before I send this over to Dr. K, I will mention one thing that, broadly speaking, privacy coins, we love them. Everything to do with privacy, we're big fans of. So we're big fans of Monero. We're big fans of Zcash. We have and harbor no ill thoughts or will wishes for these, other projects. But yeah, to your point there, scalability is kind of a big deal. And Dr. K, I'd love for you to share your experiences this summer at PorkFest, if you don't mind, utilizing this and seeing the reaction of not only, our network, but also compared to Monero and its uses there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's like a little, like it's incumbent to maybe like talk a little bit just about like the technology differences first. I think Jonathan like kind of covered some of those, and you should also add Dash to this. So let me just try to like in the title. Let me just try to give like a an overview real quick. So basically, if we look at XMR, XMR has developed over time quite extensively, actually. It started as a fork of Bytecoin, and the current incantation of it is using something called ring signatures as well as bulletproofs. So bulletproofs are a process of proving that your inputs and your outputs are zero when you sum them, so that you know that you're not sort of like minting coins. So that's the mechanism by which they conceal the amounts. And then the way that they conceal the senders and the receivers is through address hygiene and a thing called ring signatures. So ring signatures are kind of like coin joins. They're not exactly analogous, but they're from a non-cryptographer's point of view. You're just taking many inputs together. Some of them are actually going to be involved in the spend. Some of them are just mix-ins, as they're called. And based off that, set of signatures, so that is how Monero works. Now, Monero is upgrading to use ZK, or zero knowledge proofs, to replace both ring signatures and bulletproofs, and they're actually running that in testnet right now. So Zcash actually uses the same system of ZK snarks to basically use a zero knowledge proof that all state transitions are both zero. So you hide balance and you hide sender receiver in the system. So they're actually quite analogous. Where once Monero finishes the upgrade, they'll be quite analogous. The difference being is Monero doesn't allow for any open transactions, where Zcash does. So Zcash, the shielded transactions or private transactions are actually optional. And only, I think, about 5% of transactions on Zcash, or 5% of the money, is in a private setting. So once Monero finishes upgrading, the technology between the two are going to look almost identical. But Zcash is going to make privacy optional, whereas Monero is going to make privacy mandatory. Now, the other system that is, potentially more scalable, as as Jonathan was alluding to, is instead of using bulletproofs where you completely hide a transaction's value, you actually create anonymity sets based off of fixed denominations. So basically, what that means, and this is what Dash does, this is also what Qi does, is instead of having arbitrary amounts allowed as inputs from a UTX, or having arbitrary UTXO sizes, you basically say you can have sort of like a penny, a dime, a dollar, a $5, a $10, so on and so forth, and everything has to fall within one of those denominations. So if I want to send you 11 62, I'm gonna have to send you a 10, a 1, maybe like 5 dimes and 2 cents, so to speak, UTXOs. But every one of those UTXOs then, instead of having to do bulletproof to hide the denominations, they become indistinguishable because they all have the same value. The thing is with something like Bitcoin, where you're allowed to have arbitrary values to 8 decimals of precision, is that precision actually allows tracing of the tokens. So the first piece in all of these systems is you need a mechanism to hide the values, so you can't use the values as part of the tracing. So Zcash is doing that, and the upgrade of Monero is doing that using ZK snarks, and Dash and Quai do it using fixed denominations. So the other thing that you have to do is you have to get mixing. There's various ways to do this. Dash uses what they call master nodes to allow for coin joins, but you're effectively trusting these master nodes to coordinate those coin joins and not reveal your identity. What Quai does is we actually put incentives in the system for people to effectively operate in a coin join like way, and then we facilitate that process using something called BIP47 or paynims. So paynims give us a good address for use. They make it very easy to share this sort of like payment tree of addresses. So when you do a transaction, you're actually sharing potentially an arbitrary number of addresses with the other person that they can use, and that just facilitates the ease of transactions when you're working in a fixed denomination setting. And so that's how we do it. Now, the cool part about how both Dash and Qi approach it is there's not like crazy cryptography going on here. So it's actually very efficient to run. So instead of being able to do maybe a couple hundred transactions in a block, we can do maybe 1,000 transactions per second. So that's really why Qi was designed that way, is because it's designed to actually scale to be sort of, globally commercially usable as money. Now, if I'm playing devil's advocate against Darkpoint or Qi, the thing that it doesn't have relative to Monero or private transactions on Zcash is it doesn't have what you'd call sender privacy. Meaning, if I am the sender, the recipient kind of knows who I am. So in this setting, there are some use cases where, say, you're like buying drugs on the internet, where you potentially are saying, I don't want the sender to know who I am. But in the example of buying drugs on the internet, you're actually revealing who you are through a shipping address. At least pretty, deterministically, actually. So even that example isn't a good example. It would have to be you're buying like dark net malicious software or exploits or databases or something. And then if you do a very good job concealing your IP, which is also difficult, you could actually do a transaction and not really know who the counterparty is. So I guess my statement is there's very, very few transactions economically that take place where sender privacy matters, because in terms of, the recipient, because normally the recipient knows who they're dealing with one way or the other through the fact that they're doing an economic transaction with this person. So that's the difference between, say, like a Dash and a Qi and a Monero or a Zcash.
Very, very solid breakdown. So while it may not be wise to, purchase drugs using Qi for commerce, for regular merchants, for everyday use, it's actually
No. Actually, the statement is because in the drug purchase scenario, you're revealing who you are to the seller by the fact that you have a shipping address. She would be equivalently good at buying drugs. It would be in the case where you're on a strictly digital market and you're able to fully conceal your identity via other means, specifically around your IP address. only in that case does Monero have the advantage. So there's very few scenarios where you're actually interacting with somebody that they don't have some idea of who you are.
Okay, cool. Yes, that makes perfect sense. So, appreciate that. I see Kiri has his hand up. I also saw Jonathan unmuted really quick. Before I go to Kiri, I just wanted to see, Jonathan, was there something you wanted to add right quick?
No, I was going to say, yeah, I think what he said was pretty accurate, and certainly for the majority of darknet market transactions, I even think Qi would be just fine. I know Kiri has a question. I was also going to pause it to Dr. K. If he has any opinions on Tornado Cash and how that might work for Quai or for wrapped Qi on the Quai ledger, if he thinks people might use that to make their Quai more private. I understand Qi is also a great privacy tool, but there might be something there as well. So just curious about that.
Okay, yeah. So this is a great question. If of all that sort of summary, to break it down, to try to be simple about it, to get privacy, you have to conceal value. You have to conceal the graph, right? And then to Jonathan's question, is the concealment of the graph is only as good as the size of the graph itself. So you want a large graph, or you want a large set, let's say. So there's 3 things that you need to have privacy. You got to conceal the value, you got to obfuscate the addresses, and you have to have a large set size. Those are the 3 things. Those are the 3 parameters. And when you look at something like Tornado Cash, or you look at something like Zcash, right? Zcash is a very small number of transactions that are actually in the shielded or the private pool. So if you go into that private pool, or if you go out of that private pool, depending on how long you're in that pool, people can start to figure out based off timing and amount that when you bring your money out of that private pool, that's still your money. So if we assume they know who you are going in, there's ways that they might know who you are coming out. But that has to do with the time in the privacy pool, as well as the size of the privacy pool, as well as the type of transactions you do while you're in the privacy pool, right? But anytime you go in and out of the privacy pool, your guarantees of anonymity are low. And you have to actually know what you're doing and sort of try to create entropy and be very careful with your address use to actually not link your incoming and outgoing transactions. Okay, so anytime you're going between non-private and private systems, there's always a very bad interface here. And it destroys privacy, and it takes time and effort to get it back. Okay? So if we look at something like Tornado Cash is effectively like Zcash. Everything on Ethereum is open and traceable. And then you go into Tornado Cash, depending on how you do that, how long you stay there, and when you come out, as well as the total number of participants in the Tornado Cash pool, that has something to do with your privacy. So if you look, and Dash is actually the same thing, by the way. The private transaction on Dash are optional. In Quai, all Qi transactions effectively are always private. So they're always fixed denominations. They're always enforcing address hygiene. They're always using BIP47. And wallets should default be doing coin joins with counterparties on transactions. So there's no non-private Qi. Now there is non-private Quai. So when you if you were to convert your Qi to Quai, or Quai to Qi, you are breaking that link. But that link we've made purposely difficult to cross with how we've done conversions in the protocol. But if you just stay in Qi, you will have privacy. So we've kind of adopted the Monero strategy for Qi, although we have an Ethereum-like asset, Quai, that's sort of perfectly open and programmable. There's also kind of a statement here, it's very difficult or impossible to make account-like fully programmable systems, which are also private. And so if you're going to have that sort of like DeFi experience, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to get privacy. So basically what we said is for the DeFi side, the programmable side, it's going to be open. There's not much we can do about it. For the cash side, it's going to be 100% private.
I wonder if we could speculate for a moment on. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, Kiri, you've been a gentleman and a scholar and had your hand raised for quite some time. So actually, why don't we go to you? Go for it.
Yeah, just wanna also ask Dr. K about Ethereum right now just pushing the meta like privacy, and they are hire some guys to push the privacy for the Ethereum. And I just want to ask you: is there any way you can explain what's gonna happen with Ethereum and how they can implement it?
Yeah, they can't. I mean, the best way to implement privacy on Ethereum is Tornado Cash, and anything that they try to do is going to look like Tornado Cash. So there's no way they can fundamentally improve upon really what they have. If they're talking about it, I think they're just talking about it because they're trying to get people to buy Ethereum. Right, and there's like suspicions too about the different networks and the privacy techniques. So Monero definitely, from the people I know in that community, at least originally was very cypherpunk. I think in all of these systems, Bitcoin, Monero, etc., over time, I'm pretty sure that they start to glow. So like, I think Bitcoin glows. And for people that don't know what that means, it means that there's, assets or direct employees of the federal, national security apparatus operating as participants or developers in those ecosystems. So like Bitcoin like glows. Zcash definitely glows a lot more than Monero, but I wonder about Monero these days as well. But like Ethereum is like WEF territory. So like they're not even, like national security apparatus territory. They're like, I want to be the chairman of the WEF and, create the NWO that has a global digital currency that's controlled by a global government, right? Like, I wouldn't trust them about any of this. Farther than the state.
Yeah, I'm also just worried, kind of Ethereum future, because they're really kind of not user friendly, because they're building right now the kind of chain abstraction stack to solve the fragmentation, etc. So I'm not sure and also they're pushing right now privacy. I'm not sure how they're gonna compete with Quai once we're going to release a swap, and potentially the the market cap gonna grow, and the devs from this Ethereum gonna dive into Quai. So yeah, honestly, I'm not sure the Ethereum have a clear future, but yeah, just if they are linked to governments somehow.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I think they've kind of hitched their wagon there. I mean, honestly, I kind of think Bitcoin is largely doing the same thing. I mean, it's funny, you talk to all these people and they're like, I'm a Bitcoin Core developer. What meaningful changes have happened to Bitcoin Core since 2018? Right? Like, they're just LARPs. Now, in terms of Ethereum, the Ethereum guys, they're willing to change the protocol and, make all these upgrades with 5-year roadmaps and 10-year roadmaps and, play fiddle to the government about what they want. And how to make their transactions traceable and reversible and all these things. So yeah, like you said, I think if they succeed, it's not going to be because the people choose to use the money. It's because the government's forced them to use the money. But I guess I still have faith that there's enough access to the internet. There's enough capability in the technologies of truly decentralized proof of work systems like Quai that the people will ultimately choose in their own best interest and not choose the currencies of the state and surveillance. Because fundamentally, the reason that the state wants the currency is so that they can steal your money. Right? They do it, they say that they need to control it and monitor it in the guise of, human trafficking and crime. But in reality, right, the dollar is used for all of that, way more than any cryptocurrency is used. And they're just using that as a straw man to get everyone to give up their privacy. Right? This goes back to, I think it was, Thomas Jefferson that said, a man who is willing to give up their liberty for safety deserves neither. So
Both a powerful and a very relevant quote, especially in today's day and age. Well said. Great question there, Kiri. Veronica, I see you have your hand up. Let's go to you. Maybe a misclick?
she's muted, Veronica.
Can you hear
There
me
you
now?
go.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Just a comment first and then the question. So, I like how we collectively were so against CBDCs, and now we're so for stablecoin adoption by the banks, which is like the same thing, but you change the, A and B to B and A. So
Just
kind
to be
of
clear, you're using a royal we to encompass all of
yeah,
CT, but I think the people on this call are
yeah.
not for this.
Yeah, okay. That is a fair argument. Yes, I use we a lot as a just and put too many people into it sometimes. But my question was about Tornado Cash and what would it be possible to put Tornado Cash at the foundational level of Ethereum or any other EVM chain to make it more private? So it's not on top, but as you said, privacy is not optional, but becomes omnipresent for the whole network.
Yeah, it's possible, and then you would call it Monero,
Yeah, okay.
right? Now
call
the
it
problem
Zcash.
is, but Zcash is still optional, Jonathan.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so it would be called Monero if it was non-optional, or it'd be called Chi. But the thing is, once you make it non-optional, you also make it not really programmable. So those
Okay,
those
yeah,
are
that makes sense a
hard
lot.
technical bifurcation points, right?
Yeah, so the trilemma actually did not exist, but the privacy and programmability are the two that you have to choose between.
If you want to get theoretical, I mean, homomorphic encryption could theoretically make private computing also possible, but it would be a very complicated system.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna do it, it's gonna look like EUTXOs, right? And we all know there's very limited usefulness of EUTXOs, right? It's they only work well when you have a deterministic set of people participating in some type of contract versus an arbitrary open set. So I do think you could do it, but you would be limited to UTXO-like functionality, which is pretty shit, to be honest.
You don't think you could make a purely private virtual machine with rank constraint or something like? I basically do some computation on private data. I prove to you I did that computation correctly on private data, something like that.
I mean, they're getting further along with ZK, but okay. So if you could do the VM, and if it was in layer 1, you would then have to be able to like compute these arbitrarily large and complicated like ZK proofs, which still, if you're going to say you have an EVM like system, I want to say it still takes like, a few $100s to compute the proof in GPU time. So, and that's just at like, 10 TPS. If you're obviously going to go to thousands of TPS, I mean, you're still off by probably at least 5 orders of magnitude in terms of the compute efficiency that you would need to like make these things practical.
Yeah, so it's theoretically possible, but homomorphic encryption is, as you stated, very computationally expensive. You need like a really well-designed system, and then you'd need probably even an ASIC to do the verification or something. So,
well, just hold on. Like, I believe you're conflating some terms here. So if you look at ZK and homomorphic, those aren't necessarily analogous. If you look at bulletproofs are a form of homomorphic. So what would this be? So okay, that's what it would be. So within like the proving types, there's ZK, and homomorphic is one type of encryption that can be used to create a zero knowledge proof. Or it's one method that can be used to make a zero knowledge proof. But not all zero knowledge proofs are homomorphic encryption.
right. I was just saying homomorphic as an example. It's like, computation on private data. So like if I'm submitting a swap from, Quai to the mempool, that transaction is encrypted with homomorphic encryption, just as an example, so that, onlookers wouldn't know how much I'm spending or what action I'm doing. But yeah, like, it would be very complicated. It would require a lot of compute to do the proving and the verification. And so it's just not a scalable system. So any system that's able to do this would have to, manage a lot of breakthroughs to make it scalable. So, that's the reason that, we've chosen that the more scalable path while maintaining the, base, features of privacy that are necessary for global commerce.
Right.
Yeah. So I want to keep it in the theoretical for a moment. And then I want to talk about token. And I want to talk about why this is so important, an advantage of Qi, having a private chat and building on top of that. But before we go into that briefly, I want to talk about privacy for all. So obviously, more than just drug dealers need privacy. I think by default, everyone should really value this. And while I know they're not your favorite entities out there, institutions in general have this notion of moving towards stable coins to be able to quickly, send and receive and send commerce where they need to. However, there is a glaring flaw that I think all major institutions probably do realize fundamentally. It's probably one of the main reasons why they're not actually adopting as fast as one would think, since the technology is basically there. But they're not private. And so if I'm a competitor to a specific institution and I want to just watch my competitor and what they're doing in terms of commerce, I can simply just go to the chain, which is why you probably don't see as much adoption nowadays, and why you see chains like Solana running towards Zcash as a privacy option, although it's very glaringly flawed and it obviously takes the attention away from Solana itself in terms of number go up. So I wonder, Dr. K and Jonathan, if you guys could talk briefly about how an option like that might actually make more sense on Qi for larger institutions to hold their cash while maintaining privacy, yet still being able to send commerce as they need to at lightning fast speeds, and why it's such an advantage on Quai.
Yeah, just to kind of extend what you're saying, like very simply, to talk about it, let's say there's like 2 burrito places and they're across the street from each other, and there's Freebirds and there's Chipotle. If they're both using things like USDC to do all their transactions, they can monitor each other in real time in terms of what they're spending, what they're paying their employees, what they're paying their distributors. So, when they get foot traffic, etc. So from like that perspective, just having a competitive business in a capitalistic society cannot take place if you're doing on-chain transactions in like USDC. It doesn't work. That's like the simple form of it. You know, and then once you get past that, you can also say, well, you know, if we look at things like the Canadian truckers and we look at, you know, the freezing of bank accounts over $20 donations, you know, expressions of, you know, political speech or just petitioning your government or supporting a campaign, if that also goes on chain, that can obviously have very negative effects on being able to express speech because, you know, you do it and it's tracked and the powers that be declare a national emergency like they did in Canada and then they freeze your bank account. They could do the same thing with a USDC style asset. So you're not really getting any benefits of crypto or ownership or self-sovereignty if your crypto is based off of dollar-denominated accounts held in traditional banks and traded with ability to surveil and freeze transactions on chain. You're like you've just invented a worse digital cash system, right? Because at least in the old one, it was your credit card company that knew kind of what you were spending. But for other people to know it, right, your competitors wouldn't know it, the other credit card companies wouldn't know it, the other banks wouldn't know it. The only way that somebody would know it would be to get a subpoena from law enforcement and they would share it, but at least it was siloed and private. From that perspective, it wasn't broadly known by everybody. But now, if you replace that with on-chain, it means everyone can see everything that everybody else is doing all of the time. And if it's in USDC construction, they can then censor, confiscate, and reverse those transactions.
And just to say the obvious, but that's really not possible with Qi. And that's one of the major advantages. I think that in a perfect world, you'll see major adoption around this simply because of that one fact. So it's really well said.
I'll actually extend the statement, not just say it's around Qi. It's around Qi as well as proof of work. So the sort of the two characteristics you need is something that becomes economically immutable in consensus as well as has privacy in the token. Because I can either attack the token based off of its features directly, or I can attack consensus based off the lack of economic immutability. So in, you know, the case that say USDC was perfectly like sovereign. So, you know, I don't think you can make it private on Ethereum, but let's say it was sovereign, meaning in some magic way, they weren't able to confiscate it or freeze it. The treasury could still attack the protocol via consensus of the stakers, and it wouldn't actually be economically costly to do it. They would just have to coordinate it socially. Whereas if you were to try to attack the history of the chain or the nature of the protocol in a proof of work system, to change the ledger, you would have to generate work equivalently long to the depth in the ledger. So over time, proof of work becomes this immutable thing where you can't sort of change history, but you can always change the proof of stake history for almost free.
Yeah, exactly. I always learn so much, and I hope everyone understands why we have real engineers up on stage talking about these things at the best and the top level and in depth is because this is how it works, guys. And what you just described, the economic immutability, is one of the reasons why if you are tuned into the Ethereum ecosystem, why there is a lot of pushback on entities like Lido, Kraken, Coinbase owning so much of a stake, because at a certain point, if they were to come together, they could technically modify and change that immutability, the economic mutability you were talking about. So that's, again, another reason why proof of work is so strong and the real way to do this. So really appreciate those thoughts. Again, great breakdown. I hope everyone in this space is learning. Make sure you drop a like. Follow us if you don't already. Come join us in Discord. Let's talk really quick about the advantages of Qi and being able to build on it. And so Kiri, again, and Talking are doing something absolutely fantastic we haven't seen before. I'd like for you guys to just talk about, for a moment, as we close out the space today, why this is possible and why this is so important.
Yeah, sure. Just scrolled X feed, and there are some news related, kind of Europe wanna check our private messages, United Kingdom creating some kind of IDs, Australia wanna implement online age checks. So yeah, I think we are building token in right time and the right way and on the right chain. So right now it's deployed on quainetwork chain, I mean Quai ledger, and we're also exploring how to deploy it or some kind of store data, so messages on Qi. As I know, there is some kind of memory there. So yeah, we're exploring it, and I hope Dr. K will have some time a bit later to talk deeply about it, because I'm not sure how to implement it yet. But yeah, for now, to use token, you just need to have a Pelagos wallet, and the wallet just generate the private and public key pair. And so the goal for you is just to keep your seed phrase, your private key safe. So if you lose your private key or seed, you can't access to your chat. So if the governments want to kind of read your chats, they need to grab those private keys from your hands. So yeah, just take care of it, and all should be good. We're also exploring the way how to attach PDFs there, PNGs there, like it's create like Web 2 kind of experience. And for those, seems like we have to deal with TTEs. So it's like a trusted execution environment. I know some project already building it, like O network for this execution, but I'm not sure if there any way I can like run TT on Quai network as well, because it's interesting, and it's should be good to allow others to kind of process their own data. So yes, it should be fine. And also kind of thinking about how to add AI to the chat, because when you have like a lot of chat history, you definitely want to prompt the chat and ask something there. And I think like private AI there should be good. They can like analyze your chat and answer your questions. So yeah, it should be good. But not sure if I can like run it all on Quai network, because right now I'm exploring how to run it on my own server, like I rent it on MapSpace, and run their like local AI, and try to make it trustless, like private AI there. So to process data that's gonna store on chain. Yeah, so yeah, that's the plan here. And for now we have like single chat, so you can chat privately with friends, and also testing now group chat. So yeah, we have some progress there, and hopefully after swap go live, we will be able to run the testnet, private testnet, and invite the community there.
Awesome. Yeah, very well said. And, we'll make sure Dr. K had to drop, and we'll make sure that you get connected with what you need, and make sure we can help you out in any way possible. It's an absolutely fantastic space. I want to thank everyone for showing up today. Privacy is extremely important, as you all know, and not just for buying drugs, for everybody. And by default, it's not optional. We shouldn't have to opt into a system, because that itself has its own flaws. So I want to thank you all for showing up today and joining us on Quai Friday. Before we end the space, I just want to remind you that we are on the Kraken roadmap, and that should be coming very soon. We're also very far along with the integration with Wormhole, so multi-chain liquidity, being able to transfer to other chains and also to Quai is going to be very possible soon. Obviously, go use Kipper if you want to go tip on X. It's going to be very, very interesting developments coming there. Of course, you get 20 free Quai to get signed up, so go check out Kipper.money today. And if you're looking to spend Quai IRL, we have a partnership with ZEC. So go buy your ZEC card, go load that up, and go spend it on everyday goods. Not private, at least not fully, since it is KYC free. But again, today's space is about privacy. Go get some Qi, go mine some Qi. Don't forget Project SOAP. It's coming in just a couple weeks. It's going to be hitting testnet very, very soon. Stay tuned for that, everybody. Once again, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I want to thank the speakers. And of course, I want to thank you. We'll see you in the metaverse. Take care, everybody.